Hello everyone, welcome to the second video on competitiveness, strategic planning and productivity. So in this video we're going to talk about operations strategy. So we are not going to develop an operations strategy, but we want to focus on what are some of the decisions that you need to make when you decide on operations strategy in order to ensure that it aligns with the organizational strategy. This alignment is very important in order to ensure that our operations are to fulfill the organizational objective. Let's go back to our example of Walmart. So in order to stay competitive, Walmart focuses on cost reduction across supply chain and operations. This allows Walmart to focus on their organization strategy, which is save money, live better. Otherwise, your operations are not going to be effective and efficient when it comes to fulfilling the organization's mission, vision, and objective. So let's explore this term in a bit more details, and let's look into the decisions that one might be looking into when it comes to developing an operation strategy. So operation strategy provides the direction for the operations function, so which means any policies, action plans that you have part of the operations function is broadly classified under the operations strategy. It must be consistent with organization strategy. So that's what we said earlier with Walmart's example. So through Save Money, Live Better, I'm telling consumers that we are focusing on providing products and services at lowest possible price. In order to do so, I need to make sure that where I'm producing goods and services, my operations function should be efficient and effective. So we will be focusing on reducing costs of our operations and across supply chain. It must support competitive priorities, which further links to customer purchasing criteria, which is price, and price is primarily driven by the cost reduction, aimed at securing a long-term sustainable advantage over the competition. So for third point, we must keep in mind that operation strategy is developed as a longer-term plan. So you can only achieve number 3 as a longer term sustainable advantage if you have complete understanding of external environment. So this can be done through various tools such as SWOT analysis, balanced scorecard, and so on. However, as I said earlier, we are not going to develop the operations strategy. However, we want to look into different factors that comes into play when you want to make a decision on operation strategy. So we'll explore that from higher level, because in subsequent chapters we'll talk about those decisions in more details. So when it comes to strategic decision categories, the very first decision is related to facilities. So you need to decide on number of facilities, where to locate these facilities. But at the same time, most important decision is either your facilities are going to be product focused or process focused. So the nature of your product and the market you're trying to serve will define either process or product focused facilities. So the product focused facilities are primarily focused on high volume and low variety product. Some of the examples of these type of facilities will include like cereal manufacturers, then light bulbs, rolls of papers. Yeah. So all these are the examples of process focused facilities where the product variability is very low. However, the product volume is relatively very high to process focus. On the other hand, when it comes to process focused facilities, we are focusing on high variety and very low volume. So these facilities are also known as job shop. So where the focus is in terms of the equipment, layout, and the labor skills which are required to perform those jobs. So some examples of these would be, if you take example of job shop in a manufacturing segment, so the departments are devoted to, let's say, welding, grinding, and painting stations. So they are focusing on a particular type of process. In the office space, you can think of like accounts payable, sales, and payroll. They have specific function or they follow a specific process. Also, you can think of a restaurant where you have bar area, grill, and bakery. So the process defines the layout, nature of workforce, and type of equipment required in those facilities. So again, on the facilities decision, you need to look into your market or the type of product you're trying to manufacture. So then you make a decision on type of focus for your facilities. So capacity decisions relate to longer term, medium term, and shorter term. So in longer term capacity decisions, you can think of size of plant, location, what type of equipment to be purchased. So one simple example here would be in longer term capacity decision. If a manufacturer wants to set up a new plant, so shall we go to the countries where the labor is cheaper? Shall we go to the countries where we are near to the raw material suppliers? So this dictates the location. Then the size of plant, you need to look into the forecast or demand for a particular product, let's say vehicles or the cars for coming five years. So the longer term demand forecast must be considered when you make these decisions. Again, the capacity decisions are very critical, especially the long term decisions, because setting up new plants is the expensive venture. One important note here, the longer term decisions are very important because the underutilization or the shortage of capacity can lead to loss opportunities in the market. So if you don't have enough capacity, we can't serve our customers, right? So there's going to be some imbalance. But the shorter and medium term capacity can be dealt by keeping some inventories on hand, like what the beer manufacturers do. So for the beer manufacturers, the demand in winter goes low. So what they do, they don't shut down the production. They will keep their production at certain levels so that they build up inventories for the summer. Because in summer, demand is going to go high, but you have limited capacity what you can produce. However, in order to fulfill that spike in demand during the summer, we are going to use the inventories which were built during the winter period. So you need to play around with inventories in order to deal with medium and short-term capacity shortages. But long-term shortages, it's the only one way. Either you outsource or you build your capacity in terms of building new plant, buying new machinery, and so on. There we go. So that brings us to the outsourcing of vertical integration. So the idea here is how much ownership you want to have on your supply chain. So for instance, in the vertical integration, companies may decide to own whole or some part of their supply chain. For example, Apple, they own their retail stores. So on the other hand, outsourcing is when you ask your suppliers to produce some parts or goods or services for the end product. So you can take an example in case of outsourcing, its best case is car manufacturers, where 70 to 80% parts of your vehicle are outsourced by these manufacturers. So again, there's no rule of thumb when it comes to vertical integration or outsourcing. Different companies will go different route here. However, a generic way to look at it is when you want to have a greater control and greater coordination across supply chain, you go for vertical integration. However, outsourcing will be cheaper in certain cases when your product is very complex, such as modern vehicles where you have electronic components. Such as Toyota or Honda, they're not going to build capacity when it comes to electronics. So it's better to outsource so that you can focus on your core competencies. So as we're talking about outsourcing, so there's a component that will associate with supplier relationship management. So there are two broad categories when it comes to managing your supplier, either arm's length or cooperative close relationships. So management of your supplier will have direct impact on the quality of end product. We took the example of vehicle manufacturers, so where 7 to 80% parts are outsourced. So you may be dealing with thousands of suppliers, but you're not going to closely manage those suppliers through corporate close relationships because it will make the process very complex. So usually companies will manage their key suppliers or the suppliers who are supplying the parts which has major role in the quality of end product, and the other suppliers can be managed on arm's length. The other way to look at it is, let's say if you're a company who is dealing with high technology segment, so in that case I want to have corporate close relationship with the suppliers who are supplying me modern technology or who are sole supplier of that technology, so that I can have a greater control on my product quality. If I have some suppliers which are supplying me the products or the parts which are easily available in the market, I can easily switch. So in that case, I will use arm's length approach. So I use the term here switch. So companies may want to look at switching cost. How easy is it to find new supplier? What is the impact of parts or the services which are provided by the supplier on my end product? The next one is product mix, new products or the flexible production systems. So the idea here is if you're a manufacturer who is focusing on high variety, low volume products, my production system must be capable of switching between those products so that I can still take the advantage of high variety while keeping my production costs low by having flexible machines, flexible processes, flexible product design. We'll look into some examples of this in product design and process design chapter, but we will not go in greater details when it comes to flexible production systems. The next one is production process type and technology. So there are four types of production processes. Job shop, which is very high variety and low volume. So that's where we talked earlier about process focused facilities. Other good example would be your local mechanic shop. So that's a job shop where you can take your vehicle for a wide variety of repair that needs to be done. Okay, other example would be customized cakes for birthdays or weddings and so on. So as we move up from here, the next one is batch. In batch, the variety slightly decreases and the volume increases. So a good example of this would be your local bakeries in Walmart, Sobeys, and so on. So where we are manufacturing batch of goods and the comparative volume is high to job shop. Next is the assembly line. Again, volume tends to increase, variety tends to decrease. So automobile manufacturers, car manufacturers, all they use the assembly line. So where the parts are outsourced and those are assembled on the manufacturing process. And finally, the continuous flow. So that's where we have product focused facilities, the pure product focused facilities. So for the continuous flow, the idea here is very high volume and low variety. Again, sugar manufacturers, refineries, all these are example of continuous flow. So again, the type of market you're trying to serve and the nature of product will determine what type of production process you need. So then the next 3 points, and I'll wrap it up. So you need to look into the human resources as well, because type of technology, production process type will determine what kind of labor you require. For example, for job shop, you need labor who has specific skills to do those jobs. On the other hand, for the continuous flow, we are more relying on automation, on the continuous production process, where you don't need to have workforce with greater training or skill needs. So this can also have impact on the location of your facilities. So if I want to set up a plant where we are producing or manufacturing high technology products, I may want to locate my facility or manufacturing plant near to the area where I have resources or the labor availability. Otherwise, you bring the workforce from the other parts of the world to do those highly specialized jobs. I will not say much for the quality, but quality is a key component. Quality of design, quality of process, quality of product, because we're going to look into a lot more details on measuring quality, on controlling quality in chapter 9. And finally, operations, infrastructure, and systems. So here we are purely talking about different systems, software applications, which can come into play to support your operations. So we'll look into MRP, materials requirement planning, enterprise resource planning. So for operations, we'll be using Excel and we'll explore different components of Excel that are available to support the decisions. So such as Excel solver, using pivot tables, graphs. So that kind of highlights the 9 key decision areas. So again, please make sure you understand these clearly because we'll be exploring these decision areas in the coming chapters. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach me out. Thank you very much.